Anthony Edward Sowell, born August 19, 1959, is an American serial killer, identified in press reports as the Cleveland Strangler. He was arrested in October 2009 as a suspect in the murders of 11 women whose bodies were discovered at his Cleveland, Ohio duplex at 12205 Imperial Avenue in Mount Pleasant neighborhood. Early life. Anthony Edward Sowell was raised in East Cleveland, one of 7 children born to single mother Claudia Gertrude Garrison. 7 other children belonging to Sowell's sister also lived in the household, having moved in after the death of their chronically ill mother. According to Sowell's niece, Garrison subjected the siblings to physical abuse while her own children watched from adjacent rooms. In one incident, Garrison forced her to strip naked in front of the other children, then whipped her with electrical cords until she bled. Sowell himself began raping his niece on an almost daily basis for 2 years, starting at the age of 11. Military service. At the age of 19, Sowell entered the United States Marine Corps on January 24, 1978. He attended recruit training at Marine Corps Recruit Depot Paris Island in South Carolina, then was further trained as an electrician at Camp Lejeune in North Carolina. On July 13, 1978, he was assigned to the 2nd Marine Aircraft Wing at Marine Corps Air Station Cherry Point, also in North Carolina. In 1980, Sowell spent a year overseas with the 3rd Forest Service Support Group, then returned to Cherry Point. He was then ordered to Marine Corps Base Camp Butler in Okinawa, Japan on January 20, 1984. A year later, he transferred to Camp Pendleton in California for 3 days until his discharge on January 18, 1985. During his 7-year Marine Corps career, Corporal Sowell received a Good Conduct Medal with 1 Service Star, a Sea Service Deployment Ribbon, a Certificate of Commendation, a Meritorious Mast, and 2 Letters of Appreciation. 1989 Attack, Incarceration and Release. In 1989, a woman who was 3 months pregnant went to Sowell's home voluntarily. When she tried to leave, he bound her hands and feet with a tie and belt, then gagged her with a rag. The victim told police, "He choked me real hard because my body started tingling. I thought I was going to die." Quote. Sowell worked in a factory until 2007 when he began collecting unemployment benefits. Lori Frazier, a niece of Cleveland Mayor Frank G. Jackson, began a relationship with Sowell shortly after his release from prison and resided in his home. She claims to have smelled the stench of decaying bodies and that she was told the smell was coming from Sowell's stepmother. When she moved out, she claimed that the smell was from Ray's Sausage Shop, located next door to the Sowell residence. There is some confusion about when Frazier stopped living in Sowell's home. In a video interview she mentions moving out in 2007, but in a published article she is said to have been living there until 2008. Discovery of bodies and arrest. In September 2009, the bodies of 4 other women were found throughout the home, buried in a shallow grave in the basement and in crawl spaces in the house. Sowell also had at least 3 more rape victims that he had actually let live. All 3 never reported the attacks, due to their prior drug history or other personal reasons. Many victims were led to his property with an invitation to smoke crack cocaine with him. He was a known drug user throughout his neighborhood. At the time of his arrest, Sowell was 50 years old. He had been living at that location for 4 years. Sentencing. Sowell was charged with 11 counts of aggravated murder and over 70 counts of rape, kidnapping, tampering with evidence, and abuse of a corpse. He pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity but later changed his plea to simply not guilty. Quote. That Sowell did not receive a fair trial because of the extensive media coverage. The media attention was overwhelming, generating thousands of news stories, and local coverage was both frenzied and sustained. Single quote, that the courtroom had been closed to the public during an evidentiary hearing and while a jury was picked, and that he had received lousy legal representation. On April 5, 2016, the Ohio Supreme Court heard arguments from Sowell's appellant attorneys and the Cuyahoga County D.A. representing the state of Ohio regarding the merits of the closed pretrial suppression hearing prior to Sowell's trial, and the defendant's right to a fair and public trial. The attorneys representing Sowell argued that Sowell's Sixth Amendment right was violated by closing the suppression hearing to the press, and that the court should commute his death sentence to life in prison as a remedy to the structural error that resulted in the violation. They also argued that counsel had made errors, and urged the Ohio Supreme Court to send the case back to Cuyahoga County for a retrial. "Frankly, we blew it," Attorney Jeffrey Gamsa told the Ohio Supreme Court. Quote, the state argued that if Sowell's Sixth Amendment right was violated via the closed pretrial suppression hearing, it would not have affected the outcome of the trial, as the evidence was overwhelming, and that Sowell's attorneys were the ones who asked multiple times in his presence for the jury selection to be done privately, without cameras in the courtroom. Quote, on December 8, 2016, the Ohio Supreme Court rejected an appeal from Anthony Sowell, affirming his aggravated murder convictions and death sentence. Victims. On November 5, 2009, the first and second of the 11 victims were identified. The first to be identified was Tanya Carmichael, a 53-year-old African-American woman who had disappeared more than a year earlier. Her body was found buried in his backyard. She appeared to have been strangled and was identified through the use of DNA evidence. Her mother had reported her missing in December 2008. The second victim was identified as Talisha Fortson, a 31-year-old African-American woman who had disappeared 5 months earlier. Although she had been missing since June, her mother did not report her missing until she heard the news coverage regarding the dead bodies discovered in Sowell's home. On November 8, 2009, 3 more bodies were identified. Crystal Dozier was a 38-year-old African-American woman who went missing in May 2007. Dozier, the mother of 7 children, lived in the area where her body was discovered. Her family reported her missing to the Cleveland Police Department. This was not the first time she had gone missing, and the family accused the police of failing to investigate. The family took it upon themselves to post flyers and call hospitals. Imelda Amy Hunter was a 47-year-old African-American woman. Hunter, a beautician and a mother of 3, did not live in the area where her body was found, but she did visit frequently. A previous injury left her unable to use one of her arms. Her family did not report her missing until after police began removing bodies from Sowell's house. Michelle Mason was a 45-year-old African-American woman who was last seen in October 2008. She lived in the area where her body was found. According to records, the police conducted a full investigation when her family reported her missing. Records of missing persons going back to Sowell's June 2005 release from prison are being searched, and DNA testing is being conducted on the bodies found at Sowell's house. Protesters holding posters of missing loved ones have gathered outside his home. East Cleveland police are also reopening several cold cases from the late 1980s. The murders by strangulation used a similar modus operandi and had stopped around 1989, the same time that Sowell was arrested. Known murder victims. Aftermath. After Sowell's conviction, in December 2011, Sowell's former residence at 12205 Imperial Avenue was demolished on the order of city leaders. Sowell resides on death row at Chillicothe Correctional Institution. Media. House of Horrors. The Shocking True Story of Anthony Sowell. The Cleveland Strangler, written by Cleveland-based journalist Robert Saberna, examines Sowell's crimes and profiles the 11 women he murdered and the 6 women who survived his attacks. The book was released in October 2012 by Kent State University Press. House of Horrors was named 2012 True Crime Book of the Year by Forward Reviews. Nobody's Women. The Crimes and Victims of Anthony Sowell. The Cleveland Serial Killer was written by Michigan-based crime author Steve Miller. The book details Sowell's murders and how he selected his victims. It was released in October 2012 by Penguin Publishing. The case was profiled on the series premiere of Chris Hansen's new investigation discovery show, Killer Instinct. The Handyman, a short film by Cleveland filmmaker Jay Johnson, starring actor David Lemoyne as Sowell, was featured on Cleveland's WOIO Channel 19 News. The film was based on Sowell and one of his victims. Letter controversy. In November 2012, Anthony Sowell released a letter through the website Serial Killers Inc.